One rep max testing has been used forever as the gold standard for strength assessment. But don't you think by now there might be a technology that does it a little bit better? Well, that's what we're going to try and find out. Velocity-based assessments have become increasingly used for assessing fitness levels, and they're found to reduce injury risk, particularly in athletes, as opposed to using one rep max testing. But I'm not going to dive deep into the research about velocity training in this video. I'm going to share information and my review of the OVR Linear Positional Transducer Velocity Trainer. It sounds like a mouthful, but let me explain. In essence, this little box will help you assess how quickly you're able to lift a weight. By keeping track of your form and making sure that you're executing the fastest lift that you can with the best possible form at the prescribed weight is a much safer way of tracking your progress over time than relying on the traditional one rep max testing. For obvious reasons, by being able to track how quickly you're able to lift a prescribed weight, it's way less of an injury risk than trying to go all out, full intensity with the heaviest weight possible for one repetition. I'll dive much deeper into the science behind velocity training and a lot more research that supports its effectiveness. But today, I'm going to dive into why I use the OVR Velocity Trainer. As I mentioned earlier, this little box is a linear positional transducer. And the reason I prefer this type of velocity measurement is because it's considered the most accurate compared to measuring your velocity using inertia, for example. By strapping the Velcro loop attached to the string that connects to the rest of the box to a barbell or the handle of whatever weight you're using, the transducer is able to collect the starting position and then finding an ending position when the string reaches its maximum point. Another great feature behind this OVR Velocity Trainer are the number of metrics that it can actually assess. You can collect your peak or maximum velocity per rep, your average or mean velocity per rep, the distance that you performed the movement, and also your wattage calculation. Not only are these metrics extremely helpful in tracking your progress, but if you are a coach utilizing this particular training system for your clients, you're going to get a lot of data. Not only will you be able to assess their one rep maximum or any improvement in their actual strength, but you can also assess their power output, making velocity training also effective for plyometrics. Personally, I've been using this trainer for about a couple months, and I've already noticed an improvement in my strength, but also an improvement in the way that I track my exertion. For a lot of individuals out there who just get into the flow or routine of doing your workouts, especially trainers who are not particularly paying attention to the creation of their own training plan, you can get into the monotony of just trying to aim for a number of repetitions. Sure, over time, you may finally increase the weight, but your maximum potential of improvement is plateaued or drastically slowed. Using this trainer has helped keep me accountable for my own level of exertion. I realized pretty quickly that aiming for a target velocity at the specific weight I was doing gave me about 10 more reps than I was doing already. Obviously, it's a pretty big eye-opener about if you've gotten stuck in a routine and you weren't making enough changes. Now, what are the limitations of using this particular device? Well, one inherent limitation of velocity-based training in general, not just for OVR, is that when clients or people are instructed to execute the movement the fastest that they can at that specified weight, it's very easy for the form to just fail. The key behind doing velocity training is to make sure your form is on point and you're doing the movement as fast as possible. Only when you're doing the form perfectly. And that's something that people tend to forget about, which then can increase risk of injury when the purpose of velocity-based training was actually to decrease injury risk. Now, one way to mitigate this confusion on form with OVR specifically is a feature that they have within their free app. And yes, the app comes alongside their velocity-based trainer. They have this feature where you can set up your phone and record yourself completing a set. They overlay the velocity and the different metrics on the screen as you're able to watch yourself. So if you don't have a mirror, that's super helpful to be able to rewatch a set. And if you're a coach working with a client, it's an excellent way to gather actual video footage from the session of your client if you're training them remotely. Now, as of the making of this video, the usability of their free software, it's pretty straightforward, but there are some issues. They do have the opportunity to share the data, but it's pretty limited, or you lose out on the exact rep-by-rep metrics, and they give you more of a summary. Nevertheless, a workaround is just screenshotting the data from each set and sending it, making it a little bit cumbersome, but still effective. They also have a feature that's supposed to predict your 1 rep max, but I've been using this for a while now, and it still says not enough data, and seems like there would be definitely enough data. So that could be a bug fix, but I wanted to say it's a feature, but it doesn't seem to work. But all in all, the app itself is really intuitive. The last point I'm going to touch on is the price. Now, obviously, there are a lot of different styles of velocity trainers on the market, but I'm just covering the linear positional transducer, or LPT, velocity technology, which tends to be regarded as the most accurate. There are other LPT velocity trainers out there, but OVR, as of the making of this video, is the most cost-effective. I was able to get my velocity trainer through OVR for just $250, which may still sound like a lot of money for some people out there, but let's compare to the competitors. For other velocity trainers that are LPT out there, you may be paying upwards of $500 just for the trainer. And then on top of it, some of them charge extra for subscriptions to their app. Now, just some final thoughts before you jump in and get started with velocity-based training. Obviously, needing to make sure your form is perfect is very important. Not to mention understanding what is your target velocity range, what cutoff point for velocity should you aim for to prevent injury risk, and a lot of other factors. That's where having a personal trainer that is educated in velocity-based training can be very helpful. Not to mention just to have someone to look at your form and make sure you're doing that correctly. Another note on velocity-based training, at least with this more accurate sensor, is that you can really only do basic lifts. For example, it's a lot easier to perform a front-loaded squat or a barbell back squat as opposed to a heel-elevated plate squat, for example. Don't get me wrong, you can totally make modifications to specific movements so you don't have to be doing a barbell front-loaded squat. Maybe you can do a goblet squat instead. But it's hard to attach the Velcro to every object. It's really made for the handle of something like a kettlebell, a dumbbell, or your barbell. So there are limitations in that regard. But if you're trying to swap out exercises, you do need to be aware that the position that you're attaching the Velcro to absolutely matters, especially considering recommendations for target velocity points for each movement have been gathered based on scientific research conducted on the specific movement that is listed. So if you're making a modification and you're not performing the movement with the same range of motion as the original, it can get a little wonky and you may not have the same velocity target. So knowing those points, this really is an exceptional method of training. It can help you keep yourself accountable for what fatigue level is actually appropriate, rather than just relying on counting reps or subjective measures like RPE alone. Of course, you want to make sure you've got great form and you're still relying on those subjective measures like RPE, but this gives you so much more data to actually see where you're progressing in time and show yourself that you're getting better, without the added risk of regular 1 rep max testing. So I hope this video has been helpful. Overall, I am a fan of OVR, and I'll drop a link in the description of this video so that way you can get your very own velocity-based trainer. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, drop a comment. I do take topic suggestions for videos, and don't forget to subscribe. Share this video to all those who may benefit as well. Thank you so much for watching, and always remember, your health is an investment, not an expense. I'll see you in the next one.